All right, we are live here with my guy, my dude, Jesse, KIR Finance. What's going on, buddy? How you been?
Peace. It's been a while, man. It has been a while. I kind of lurk in the shadows most days, just because I've been very busy with a few projects I'm kind of working on the side, but still following along in general. Obviously, been interested in the crypto space for a very long time now, and excited to be on the call with you, man. It's been too long, truthfully, and I half of that's my fault. I think I bailed on you once or twice, and it just stuff just came up.
Hey,
So I
life,
admit it. I suck. I know. I know. I'm reminded daily.
life gets in the way, brother. Life gets in the way, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I figured at some point we'll talk. We'll dive into some Jasmy stuff, but I wanted to get your kind of thoughts on a lot of the other stuff that's going on around the market as well. Like, first off, what was your take on this World Liberty Financial coin? Did you bother with it? Did you?
No. No. Remind me that scenario again. It's on the top of my head, but
Yeah, so Trump, I guess Trump Media, they launched their World Liberty Financial coin, and it, I mean, as expected, completely plummeted as soon as it launched, right? I mean,
okay.
I told I told everybody in my community, I said, don't like, are you buying this? I said, no, are you crazy? It's gonna get listed everywhere the same day, and then they're gonna drain the liquidity out of it, and then they're gonna buy Bitcoin and Ethereum with the money. Sure enough, right?
Yeah. 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 The World Liberty Financial, that's the name of his company behind it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. No, you're spot on your assessment. That's exactly what they're going to do, right?
Yeah, you don't see, and I try to explain this to people. They say, "Oh no, like everyone's going to get behind this World Liberty Fanatic because it's Trump's coin." Trump's not even behind it, right? Like I
Right.
said, it's liquidity for them to acquire Bitcoin and Ethereum. You don't see any other, you don't see any millionaires, any of the big names in crypto, so to speak, are not on YouTube or on TV or anywhere saying, "I'm going to buy some World Liberty Financial coin," right? They're all saying they're going to buy Bitcoin.
Right. Right. And something else that a lot of people aren't aware of is that most exchanges, maybe not all of them, but many of them, have their own quant firm also working and trading. And like, this is one thing that Binance has been sort of accused of in the past, is wash trading their own shit coins, right?
Yeah.
So that does happen. Yeah. So it's a slippery slope with that thing. It's like ice skating on a frozen lake. I mean, depending on the time of year, I mean, that thing might be a little thin in a few spots.
Yeah. I think that one of the biggest problems is that people, especially newer people in crypto, when they come in, they feel like they're operating in a space that is generally run on good faith, and it's crypto is just not. It's
No.
to quote Gary Gensler, it's the Wild West still, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
we literally were tracking about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, Binance uh, shipping off and selling off Bitcoin and Ethereum over to Wintermute to push the price down, and they were liquidating all of their longs, right?
Hmm.
Like, just openly, and it's like, just there's no consequences, right? Literal market manipulation, but we don't have any regulations yet, right? You know, there's no cop on the beat, so to speak, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it like this is kind of like what goes on behind the curtain that most people are unaware of, right? Is that the various exchanges will push their users to to use our platform and trade on leverage. It's all about leverage, right? And you can
Yeah,
go long, or you can be short, or whatever it is. And whatever the general sentiment is for, like, for the entire space, and usually it moves on Twitter, right? X. Whatever the sentiment is on on X is how the whole Twitter and everything, the space is moving. And so it can really kind of shape what the group is going to do, the herd. And what's interesting is that if you've got the exchange, right? So the exchanges here saying they're pushing everybody to trade with leverage, but then their quant firm is on the side sitting there going, well, how can we make a ton of money? Well, we go 100% against it, right? And like one of the things that always stood out to me early on is who stands to make money when everybody gets liquidated? It's the exchange, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're making a ton of money. So is the firm that's trading it, right? So, you know, everybody that sort of buys that carrot that today's the day they're getting rich because they're leveraging long, probably not. Probably not, you know?
Well, and that's another thing that I like to cover is I like to show people on YouTube anyway when I'm live and stuff like that. Like, guys, have a close look at all of these longs. Like, we'll go to the liquidation levels and we'll look around and say, guys, you know, when you've got, I don't know, $6-7 billion worth of longs or shorts, whichever way you're going to look at it, that's up for grabs to get liquidated, and it's not so heavy on the opposing side. It's not the best idea to put in, you know, to jump in with the crowd there and put in, you know, where the masses are, because they're about to get all that money is about to get liquidated. You pretty much know it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you know, not only that, like there's a reason that Binance, at least historically, runs, you know, foul of the law wherever they're at, and then sort of moves to the next location, right? Because they are doing all this stuff, you know, and they've been doing it since the beginning, which is why they're worth so much, truthfully.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be surprising to see how things change over the next, I don't know, full cycle, the next 4 years. You know, we just saw that the CFTC and SEC essentially just welcomed all offshore exchanges back into the United States to service American customers. But that doesn't mean that a framework's not being, you know, put in place where half of these are like all these exchanges are going to pour back in, and then 2/3 of them are going to jump right back out again because the guardrails are going to be put in place, and they're going to, oh shit, either we're not solvent or we don't meet these standards, so we got to get the hell out of here, right?
Could be, yeah, it could be. On the side, I've been I've been reading a book called Going Infinity. Have you heard of this?
No.
So there's the author is Michael Lewis. He's the guy behind like Moneyball, and he did like Flash Boys about like high frequency traders and stuff like that. And so anyway, so this book Going Infinity is about the rise and fall of FTX and SBF in particular. And very interesting story, you know, your typical kind of crypto story in the sense that they were making so much money, like an insane amount of money, right? And so I don't know if you remember this, but at the time they had their quant firm Alameda Research was the name of it, right? And it was bad.
We lost your audio, bud. You sound like you're in a tin can suddenly.
What happened?
You're back.
Am I back?
You're back, yeah.
That's weird. This is a hardwired connection, so I don't know. Maybe the fiber optic crapped out somewhere. Anyways, so I was saying, though, that so they had a quant firm, Alameda, and then they had their exchange, FTX, right? They also had like an FTX US. And ultimately, when we had that really bad year, I don't know if that was 22 or 23, and everything started to go under, they ultimately had a $8 billion hole in their budget, right? And so with this hole, they also had a bank run essentially on the platform, and no one knew where the money was. And they were so colossally disorganized that they had investments. He had all kinds of shit. Like one of the crazy things he had a $500 million investment in Anthropic, which, by the way, just the other day raised like another $13 billion or something like that. He had investments like literally everywhere, billions and billions all over the place, right? And so, so one of the things they talk about in this book is how, yeah, you know, all of the exchanges, They're all kind of, founded here, domiciled there. They're in these kind of weird tax haven areas around the world, and they all have their own quant firm with them that's making a shit ton of money on top of the exchange also making a ton of money, right? But so anyway, so with FTX, they have a hole in the budget, they can't find the money, and they have a bank run. And so he's basically forced at the time, and he's always got this nemesis that's CZ, right, of Binance, that him and CZ are always going back and forth, right? And so it comes down at the end where really the only person who could possibly bail them out is Binance. And then CZ backs out at the last second, really, really kind of sticks the knife in the side to him, right? And so he gets really bad legal advice, of course. Of course, that also plays into this, right? Really bad legal advice. And the attorneys say, hey, you got to file bankruptcy and you need to do it in the US because if any of these other areas around the world step in, it could get really ugly, right? So they scare him, right? And then they also say, even though FTX US is profitable, you need to throw that in also, even though it's a separate company. And it's a profitable company, which is insane, right? And so his attorneys convince him to do this. He signs over the company. He files bankruptcy, signs it over. And the guy that's appointed by the court is the guy who handled the Enron bankruptcy, like 15, 20 years ago. So he's like a geezer, right? Like grandpa who handled the Enron thing. And he's just like, yeah, this whole company is BS, and they didn't manage anything, whatever. And he starts digging into it, and he starts trying to get what they refer to as clawbacks, where he's trying to get money for the various creditors, right? And so what's fascinating in this entire story is that I remember this point in time, and I mean, the media was 100% against Sam. Even BitBoy, that nutcase BitBoy, was in the parking lot outside of his spot in the Bahamas. And the funny thing was that Sam drove like the world's shittiest Honda Accord. He wore the same crappy cargo shorts, wrinkled t-shirt. It's been washed like 3 times in 90 days. The same crappy pair of socks. There was never any intent with Sam to deceive, to steal, to any of these things. None of that happened, right? But they still have this hole in the balance sheet. And so they talk about in the book, like how easy he was to steal from. So one of the things that came about was apparently in the background, FTX had been hacked for nearly $1 billion. And he didn't want to acknowledge it publicly. So they just sort of let them get away with it, right?
Oh.
Yeah, so that's $1 billion that's just sort of poof, disappeared. In those final days, somebody walked off with $450 million right out the door. Goodbye, right? Just a crazy amount of fraud was kind of happening, and they were saying how Sam did not like titles, so there was no structure in the company. So it was like a clubhouse shit show of people, right? So anyhow, so going back to the main guy that's appointed by the court to do the clawbacks for the creditors, right? So he starts doing these various clawbacks, and they start looking all over the place. And it turns out they find more money than what the supposed hole in the budget was. Okay? So like in terms of like a bankruptcy proceeding, this is unheard of. Basically, FTX was solvent. The whole thing was solvent. All of it, right? But they were disorganized. So
didn't they use QuickBooks to
yes, yeah, they had QuickBooks, and part of me also is my background in corporate America says that the CFO should have been the one taking the fall for this because they should be handling the accounting. But somehow everybody just sort of pointed at him and they said, well, he's in charge. And so he's now serving a prison sentence of 25 years, right? No one else is. And in the bankruptcy court, The the institutional investors of FTX are projected to receive 149% on their original claim. And the retail investors were projected to receive between 125 and I think it was like 139% on their claims. So they're making money as bankruptcy creditors, which is absolutely insane, you know? Completely only in crypto does this stuff happen, you know?
Well, what about when allegedly he was taking money and buying his parents' properties and stuff like that? Like, how was that just rumor and speculation, or
Not entirely, no. So there's different areas and people that he gave money to or invested in. His parents got money, and they were one of the people targeted when they were doing clawbacks. Was getting money back from them, getting money back from people he donated to, causes he invested in. Like I told you, his Anthropic investment, they just sold that shit off. Insane, right? Completely insane. His Solana. So he apparently, the bulk of his Solana was bought at 20 cents.
Wow, 20 cents.
20 cents. Yeah.
So he had white chick money, white girl money.
He had a stupid amount of money. But, and this is the other crazy thing of this whole thing. So have you ever heard of effective altruism?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so this is like a big concept in this book. They refer to them as EAs, right? And the idea here is that most people live their life as a net negative. They're a drag on society, right? However they live, it ends up being a net negative. Mm-hmm. And it's all about turning your life into a net positive. And how you do this is basically you target how you can make the greatest difference, right? And that's exactly what he was doing, right? Is how can I make the most money possible to then give away most of it, is sort of the idea behind this entire thing, and this whole, movement of people or whatever, is this effective altruism. And so the irony here is that in most bankruptcy proceedings where there's some allegation of like embezzlement or whatever, there's usually like some shitbag at the top that was stealing money or, something like that, or it's a big scam, it's a big rug pull. And FTX was never that. There's none of this intent. Like, he wasn't out driving a Lambo. He's driving like a shitty Honda Accord, And they were even saying how, like, he apparently had no security whatsoever, even though he was worth at one point like billions and billions and billions of dollars. And so
it was all basically run on incompetence.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's basically that they got so big so fast, they never hired anybody of quality who knew these various arenas, or at least oversaw them. And so everybody was just sort of learning as they went, like, oh, I guess I'm the CFO, or, oh, I guess I'll be the marketing guy, and it's like no one had the backgrounds. So anyways, the moral of the story is, being disorganized in crypto could be a massive downfall. That can lead to your downfall and take you down, and you can go to prison, right? But if you're not, like, one of the things that a lot of the people who worked at the company couldn't believe at the end, they're like, how are we bankrupt? They're like, we had like a printing press of money. How is this even possible? And the reality is they weren't bankrupt, but they thought they were because they were so disorganized. And then he files bankruptcy, and then they blame him for embezzlement, even though there's no intent and he didn't embezzle anything. And now he's in prison.
With Diddy. Wow. Unbelievable, man. I'm waiting for the movie.
It could definitely be a movie, easily. But there were definitely some parts in the book that were really funny, like laugh out loud funny. Anyway, it was called Going Infinity. Pretty funny.
Yeah, I have no doubt that the whole cycle from like 2018 to about, probably around the beginning of 2024, that whole window, there's a movie there, like The Big Short. There's a movie there, man. you've got all the characters. You've got Gary Gensler's. You've got your CZs. You've got your Sam Bankman-Fried's, right? All the pieces are there for a great movie like The Big Short. Right?
Yeah, very much so. And like I said too, he and CZ were rivals, big time. And apparently CZ doesn't really consider anybody as a rival. Even oddly enough, Coinbase, he doesn't really consider them a rival, but apparently SBF, he considered as a rival. And so they kind of went back and forth at different times throughout their history. And it was never really smooth at any point, you know?
Sam must have said something that CZ took personally.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of that, so speaking of Coinbase, and not to get too off topic here, but these are a couple things I've learned recently, which are very interesting. I don't know if you ever have seen on YouTube the Sean Ryan show, but he interviews people. And he interviewed Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, he's asking him all about Coinbase and how they started and this thing and that thing and whatever. And Brian Armstrong shared a few very fascinating things about Coinbase that people probably don't know, right? So here's a few nuggets for your listeners if they haven't seen the interview. One of the things that he shared was that in the early days of Coinbase, they got hacked, okay? And no one knows this, right? So apparently they got hacked from somebody who got access to one of their admin accounts. So none of their wallets. It was an admin account, right? And what the guy was doing was sending himself essentially refunds for people that signed up to the platform. It was like 25 or $50, something like that. He was sending himself, right? And what's very interesting about this is that this time in Coinbase's history, they were only had about 350 to 400 grand in the bank. And because they had such a small team and they hadn't scaled yet, they were working really, really late, trying to respond to service tickets endlessly. So he said he had a team between him and two other guys. Just all they would do all night long is service tickets, just responding to people complaining about bitching about the platform, right? And so anyways, one night, all of a sudden they realize that they're being hacked and their account's dropping, their balance in their account, right? And so they caught it and they stopped it. And so he said the guy got away with about 50 grand of their 350 to 400 that they had on hand at the time, which to them was a big deal back then, right? But he said what was even more fascinating is that the guy did it when they were still at the computer. So if that particular hacker had hacked them in the middle of the night, Coinbase would have went insolvent and never would have existed.
Wow. Had he just waited a few more hours.
Yep. And he would have gotten away with all of it. He would have easily drained the whole amount, would have been gone, right?
Wow.
So that's a very interesting story. Now, a second hack is more recent with Coinbase, where somebody has basically ransomwared them and said that they have users' data, right? User data, right? That they're threatening to release, whatever. And so he said they talked about this hack with their board, and they're like, "What do we do? Do we pay the ransom?" And he's like, forget that. Like, I don't want to pay this guy's ransom. And he says, "What if we do this? What if instead of paying the ransom, we put out a reward and get sort of the darknet community, the anonymous people, everybody, and we see if we can figure out who this actually is, and we'll pay them a reward." So he said, they put out a reward that was like more than the US was asking for bin Laden, essentially, to put in context, right? And sure enough, like all these people have come out from kind of the netherworld of the darknet and have come forth to say, yeah, I know exactly who it is, or it's this guy and it's this team, and it's multiple people. And apparently they're working with the FBI right now on that,
Wow.
which is interesting, right?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Anyway, the reason in saying all this stuff is that if you don't know the backstory of crypto, it's kind of hard to to be an intelligent investor in the space when you don't know these things are going on in the background. It's crazy.
And it's every day. It's happening every day. You just don't hear about it, right? Because everyone's mostly talking about when Moon, when Lambo. Right?
Yeah.
I got to give a quick shout out to Isaac here for the super chat. Good morning, buddy. I'm now at the phase where I'm excited and not stressed anymore. There you go. Just wait it out, buddy. Just wait it out, brother. So interesting story for you. I've been talking a lot with KJ.
Okay.
KJ. And Hara is actually supposed to be coming on my channel.
Really?
Yeah, he's agreed to come on my channel. I think things got postponed a little bit because we were originally going to be talking about Junction. I had pre-sent him a bunch of questions from the community so that he could, translate and come up with the best kind of responses and all that kind of stuff. And but now that we've shifted gears from Junction to Jasmy chain, I think that's why our interviews kind of been pushed back a little bit. But yeah, he has agreed to come on my channel, and so I'm gonna kind of connect with KJ again. And because last time I talked to KJ, he asked me when would work, and I said, well, listen, I mean, I do this, right? Hara is running a global company, and he's going to all of these events and speaking at all these things. I can work around his schedule, right? Like you tell him to tell me when works for him, and I'll make it work, right? I'm all good with that. So yeah. But he's coming on the channel, and I'm gonna touch base with him again. And I was shocked, honestly. I was shocked I even got a response, and then the response to be yes was even more shocking. I was like, shit, be careful what you ask for, right? Because
yeah. Hara has come a very long way over from where he started with this thing. A lot of like the criticism that's out there in the space, I think probably originated on some of the content that I put out and my own frustrations with kind of him and the team. And, there was a lot of that. Yeah, there really was. I mean, in terms of like, can't we just get somebody that handles marketing? Can't we get somebody that knows English fluently? Yada, yada. Right. And, one of the reasons that Jasmy is likely in the monitoring zone with Binance is because they never had like the blockchain guy, like whatever the project is, there's usually somebody who's like the blockchain guy that's behind it, like
David Schwartz.
Yeah. There's always someone, right? And so with Jasmy, he's basically had to become that guy. And, he's even talked about how, there's like sort of like two sides to that coin, that there's the older guys that all worked at Sony. And then there's sort of the younger guys that are in the crypto side of things and blockchain, right? And he's become that guy over time. And he has come so far. like it's kind of, like it's really neat to like watch the progression that he's made, because it didn't start well by any stretch. And I think if you look at like what they've released with the Junction that's now become the Jasmy chain and kind of everything behind it, it's really become more of a blockchain project. And, like I know I had somebody reach out to me asking me about it, like, hey, what does this announcement really mean? And well, it means that the Jasmy coin will finally have utility. That's one really big thing that it means. So basically anybody who has the coin can now use it within the ecosystem, whether it's for staking, voting rights, whatever, different reasons within the ecosystem that, typically follow the same crypto playbook. Now all that can actually come to fruition. It's not just like owning an NFT that doesn't do anything. Now it actually has a purpose, right? But the flip side of that, of it having a purpose, is that you also have the whole thing with the Binance monitoring zone, that, I make the joke of like the snot-nosed intern that put Jasmy in the monitoring zone to begin with because they didn't do any of their homework. Well, now you can easily just go right to the page and say, okay, here's the chain, here's the coin, here's what it does. This is real. It's not just some like Hawk Tuah rug pull. like it's actually a real thing. It's out there. And so it gives it credibility, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was under the impression though that, I mean, it was already going to have a lot of utility. Like, I know that there's other plans in terms of utility for the token, like Janction Stories. I don't know if you've heard much about that platform that they're building out.
No, I have not.
So apparently, from all the research I've done into it, is it's another platform that YouTubers like yourself and me who create Jasmy content specifically can upload our YouTube videos to. And you obviously have to have a PDL active to do this. So the way that it will work is that you, as a content creator, creating Jasmy content and uploading your videos to the Janction Stories platform, will get paid in Jasmy coin, right? When your video is viewed, kind of thing, right? Monetized, essentially.
Yeah.
And the side that makes this so beneficial is that everyone who watches your video on Janction Stories and has a PDL also gets paid in Jasmy coin for viewing and consuming Jasmy content, right? So I think it's a genius idea for that. That is like, for me, that's kind of like next level marketing. It's almost like creating a self-sustaining marketing ecosystem where you don't have to have somebody who's running the marketing and stuff like that. When the creators of the content are being paid and the viewers of the content are being paid, it's all the incentive you need on both ends for people to be paying attention to what's going on with Jasmy and Janction, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. And, you know, Jasmy to date has never had a official marketing outreach affiliate program, nothing like that. They never had that. You know, even when, you know, they announced some of us as ambassadors way back when, nobody was ever paid in Jasmy coin or any coin for that matter. It's more so just people kind of talking about it on their own. And, you know, you look at other projects that are out there, and many of them do have affiliate programs, right? Because you gotta spread the word. And so it would make sense for them to do that, truthfully. I mean, it's something that they haven't had and they've been missing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest with you, I've been considering trying to organize just going out there to their office and maybe having a sit down interview with Hara.
Hey, Dip Metaverse did that.
Well, that's what got me thinking about it, is when Dip did it in like 2022, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't think he really did. He didn't do like a filmed interview. He just did a Q&A and then typed out the kind of questions and answers and updated everybody on everything, which was fantastic. But I've been considering maybe. I can't see why, I can't see why he wouldn't. If he's willing to come on the channel, I can't see why he wouldn't be willing to kind of sit down for 15 minutes in person if I was actually there. Maybe got a tour of the place, give people a little bit of a sense of confidence if they can kind of see, like, look, this is a real place. This is there's people here working, right? Like, so I don't know. I've been thinking about that too.
Yeah, you know, the one thing I would say is if you're doing that, whatever you're going to ask him, you may want to give him that list ahead of time. Not in the sense that he's going to give you some bullshit answer, but more so in the sense that it gives him time to more accurately respond to what you're asking in real time, you know?
We've got to translate it and everything too, right?
Yeah, you know, I do not speak Japanese, but my understanding is that thinking about it and translating to English, it's almost like backwards. So for him being able to do that real time has got to be very challenging, especially when he didn't know both languages, you know, when he was real young. I mean, he's been learning English, you know.
Does Dip speak Japanese?
No.
Okay, so it must have been, yeah, so he must have done something similar. Yeah, I would totally send a whole list of topics that we could cover, and, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I would interview him. Yeah, I mean, that'd be really cool, you know.
I would do that, honestly, even if he spoke perfect English, because I mean, well, it's just common courtesy to kind of let the person you're interviewing kind of have a heads up, and you'll get more thought out answers that way too.
Yeah,
I would
I
think,
agree.
right? Instead of kind of just being put on the spot and so what's up with the price of your coin, dude?
Yeah, well, what's going on here? Can we get some more price action?
Do something, Debs. Come on.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
I think that I was reading yesterday that part of the plan here that they're going with Jasmy Chain, um, is that they're trying to almost, in a way, rebrand. It's like they're trying to distance themselves from um, the negative stigma that Jasmy has kind of uh, accumulated over the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or whatever, right? With the whole originating with dumping the supply on the market, and then people thinking it was a rug because of that, and the lack of price action, the innovation zone, um, the lack of product being released out to market, just all of that stuff. It's almost like they're trying to rebrand in a way to get away from that. And I think they should. I think they should just change the Jasmy logo. I mean, you've seen a lot of other projects do it. Polygon did it, like Matic did it, right? They rebranded to Paul now, POL, whatever. Didn't Theta just do that too? Aren't they like Sonic or something like that now?
They may have. Yeah, they may
Yeah.
have.
So something like that, but I don't think it's a terrible idea, and I think that's kind of what Junction was originally too. Was maybe an attempt at a little bit of a rebrand, um, but didn't really kind of pan out because it ended up making people feel like they were abandoning Jasmy and they were going to only, function on with this Junction thing moving forward. So I think just rebranding, going with Jasmy Chain, and maybe make a fresh logo, update the logo and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to change the name of your company or anything, but update your logo and stuff like that. It is kind of stale now and stuff. And I don't know, just kind of run from there, like and start following through. Don't I think their biggest weakness, in my opinion, is that it's not that they don't follow through on what they say. It's that they give unrealistic timelines for their goals to get what they want to get done, and then when it doesn't get done, people get angry.
Hmm. Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, you can't just discount the rest of the crypto market, like what's going on with Bitcoin, what's going on with the ETFs, what's going on in the US market ahead of that. All of these things are interconnected. So it's not really honest if you're just saying, well, Jasmy sucks, it's not doing anything. Well, there's a lot of heavily big time things that are heavily influencing it here, between the ETFs and the movement on the major markets, regardless of what Jasmy's doing as a project. Now, in terms of like the rebranding, probably is good to have a fresh start, to be honest, because, going back in time, again, if you don't know the context, half the company's the old guys from Sony, half the company isn't. The blockchain technology is part of the PDL, but the old guys from Sony never had any interest in crypto, right? So that's where Hara comes in, and he's basically had to learn and become the blockchain guy over that time. Now, also going back in time, they tried to have a partnership with, I think it was Centrality, to increase the throughput, and it didn't pan out. And so sometimes you see this in startups where the startup will move a certain direction, and then basically a year or two later, they go, oh, shoot, it's not working out. We've got to go in another direction. That's what happened here, right? Also, the dumping of the coin was the original owner, one of the quote old guys that did not work at Sony, but that's who did it, right? That's why the thing went down in value. So
Yeah.
again, Hara didn't have anything to do with that part of it. And how it got into the monitoring zone was because they did not have your typical blockchain stats. They didn't have a blockchain website. They don't have, here are the nodes around the world and here's the list of transactions on the ledger. None of that was there, right? So that's why it got stuck in the monitoring zone. So if they had done this, let's say the right way, the original owner wouldn't be involved. They never would have went into the monitoring zone because they would have launched as a blockchain project and had all that blockchain data in the website, which they didn't have, right? And so it does kind of make sense to rebrand it now, and move forward kind of in that newer direction, right? Now, you're always going to have a bit of a tug of war there at that company because the owners are still the Sony guys, but Hara plays a very prominent role as the blockchain guy. And, the higher it gets in market cap, the more important he is.
Yeah, and he also speaks to, the younger generations as well, right? So
Yeah.
there's also that. But yeah, I mean, a rebrand, good timing in my opinion. You're going with Jasmy chain and stuff now. You might as well. I don't know. I think it's perfect. But I would like to go down there and sit down with him if he's willing. I'm more than happy to do that. I mean, I'm honestly planning on spending a lot of time traveling in 2026 to a lot of different crypto conferences and stuff.
Really?
I already have my tickets in my room and everything for Bitcoin Las Vegas in April.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You're going to take the risk as a Canadian coming to the U.S.
Yeah. And wear a I am Canadian shirt, and you can come to my funeral.
Hey, it's funny, kind of on the side, on Reddit. I don't know how I got in a loop of this, but somehow I've gotten a loop of I think it's called like tourism hell, and they complain about these issues with tourism in the U.S. right now, right? And one of the things that keeps coming up is Las Vegas, and it seems like the underlying message, and I haven't been there to discover this myself, but this is what everybody says, is that they're like, yeah, you used to be able to go to Vegas for a weekend and you'd be gambling at the table, you'd get your drinks comped, maybe you get great you get a hotel stay comped or something like that. You spend a lot of money, maybe you make some money, have a good time, you're gone, and that's it. So it was like kind of like cheap fun on the weekend, go out to the desert, whatever. And they're like, now you go there and it's $30 a drink. Apparently the mafia has sold all their holdings to like hedge funds, have jacked up all the prices. Everything's insanely expensive. So you'll have to let me know if that's true after you go there.
Well, personally, I don't gamble, right? I might sit down at a blackjack table here and there when I'm down there for kicks, but I'm not a gambler. I don't drink. So really, in my spare time, I'll probably there's a couple of after parties for the conference and stuff like that every day. So we'll probably go to those, and outside of that, in my spare time, I'll probably just catch some of the shows. Really.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be fun.
And just do the tourist thing, maybe. I mean, it's an experience. Most of what I'm going to be doing there, though, is creating content, right? So, with the tickets that I got and stuff for the conference itself, they actually have a platform like studio area for YouTubers to make content and conduct interviews and all that kind of stuff that comes with your package, so you're able to utilize that. So, going to be doing that as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I'll have to keep an eye out for that. That'll be neat to see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I plan on going maybe ETH Denver. I even plan on going out to Dubai when they have a conference out there. Like XRP has a conference every year. I think XRP's is in the fall, though, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't know when theirs is.
But I feel like going to ETH Denver, if it's in Denver again, Is it Denver every year, or was it just last year that it was ETH Denver? It's every year, isn't it?
I think it's every year because I know Hara's been to that one a couple of times, hasn't he?
Well, I was just that was the implication. I was gonna say like maybe I can get an interview with Hara there as well, right? Since he's gonna be there anyway. And Jasmy or Junction generally hosts a an event at those as well, like an after party kind of a social thing. There's usually 300 to 600 people at those things as well. So I think normally when he's in like when he does it in like Japan, they usually like rent a yacht and host a party out there. So yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you've been covering it long enough that at the very least he owes you a Diet Coke.
Right? Yeah. No kidding. I've been carrying the weight of the team here. Let's go.
Yeah, come on, man. I mean, at least a soda here. I mean, it's something.
Can a brother get a cameo over here? I think even Max doesn't talk Jasmy as often anymore. He generally talks about CBEC and Quant and stuff like that now. So he still covers Jasmy once in a while. But I think part of it is because there hasn't really been too much to talk about. But I'm sure with Jasmy Chain coming out, he'll probably be all over that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, another big thing with the Jasmy chain that I didn't mention earlier is that the more Jasmy coin they can get locked into the chain via users, that gives you the TVL, or total value locked, right? So like in the crypto world, usually you can look at a project and see if it's got value or not based on the TVL. How much money is locked into this particular chain, right? And with Jasmy to date, what is the TVL? Right? 0. Yeah, it's 0. Correct. Now, when you actually have it as utility, now all of a sudden you've got money locked into the chain, right? You know, so in a way, it's different than how it's always been. So should be good.
Well, and I think once they finally get this the PDL launched and you know they're just in their testnet phase right now, but when they get everything you know out, they're also launching their meme coin launchpad as well, I guess, in the Jasmy ecosystem. That could be big, right? Look what it did for Solana last year, right?
Yeah,
everyone launching memes. But it's funny you mentioned TVL because I was going to talk about that about 15 minutes ago. I was going to say, like, I get asked all the time about the whole, you know, previous all-time high. Can Jasmy get back to it? I even covered an article, I think, yesterday about this Javin Marks guy, I think it was, who's claiming Jasmy's going to go to $4.47 this cycle and stuff like that. And I'm just based on TA, and that's why I'm always trying to tell people, like, look, TA is great, right? But it's not, you have to have the full picture when you're evaluating these projects. You can't just look at some charts. Like I go over charts every day on my channel, right? But I also couple that with, you know, other relevant factors like, I don't know, the TVL. How the hell is Jasmy supposed to get to the previous all-time high with 0 TVL? Can it get there with like a 75, 80% TVL? Possibly, right? But not where it's at right now. I mean, right. Look what Cardano did with a what was an 83% TVL, I think, in the 2021 cycle.
They had a significant TVL. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they went from like 3 cents to like $2.85 or something.
Correct. Yep.
So the bottom line is that you can't just look at a chart and say, okay, well, the chart says that it could go to $4.47. Okay, but there's other mitigating factors here. Circumstances matter, right? Like, what's the ecosystem doing? Is their product even out to market? What's the sentiment on the project? Not good right now, right?
Yeah, I've got a friend and collaborator of mine that he's a data scientist, right? And he was telling me the other day how going back in time, he created a model to track Solana in particular, right? And he was looking at, can he accurately predict the future price of Solana? And could he build a model that could do that, right? And he ended up following it over a course of 3 to 6 months, something like that. And his model nearly identically predicted it. Now, the catch here, though, is that he was telling me that it was based on something like 120,000 data points. And he was very specific in saying that the data that he sourced and looked at, he wasn't even sure if he could get today, right? And so the point is that that's sort of a moving target, what those data points are, to then be able to accurately predict it. And so my point in saying all of this is simply that looking at just TA by, slapping an indicator on there, you don't have 120,000 data points, right?
No.
So TA it's useful and it is good, but it's also not entirely accurate all the time. Now, I do think trading patterns occur and things repeat and whatnot. And so, is it probably predictable ultimately if you had a model that was big enough? Yeah, it probably is. But that's very challenging to do. And so, you see a lot of channels like on YouTube and X that take off because they're all about TA. But look at how accurate that is. I mean, look at Plan B and his model for Bitcoin. I mean, every day he's kind of like moves the goalposts a little bit again. Like, see, we're still in it, and it's like, your line was way up there, and we're down here somewhere.
Yeah.
Well,
there is those channels that they do heavily rely on TA, and that's fine. Like you said, TA is fantastic, and but again, like I know people who operate on like one tool. They just use one tool to read charts, and that's the only metric that they take into consideration. And then, when you're wrong 75% of the time, well, it's because you're using one tool. When I'm looking at something and I'm thinking, what's the potential of the future price action of this in the, near or medium term, I'm generally looking at 8 to 10 different factors on the market, right? I'm looking at different tools. I'm looking at different macroeconomic factors. I'm looking at what the company's doing. I'm not just looking at, one tool on the charts and going, okay, so it's going to go up or it's going to go down to, that you're playing in probabilities. You're not playing in certainties. And I think that the fact that so many people heavily rely on TA in that capacity has created a problem where most new people in crypto that have only been here for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, even 3 years, are under the impression that technical analysis is based on certainties, right?
right.
And every time I've seen it 100 times, I see YouTubers, they call for it and they make a call and it ends up being wrong. And then people are attacking them in their comment section of their videos saying, oh, you were wrong. You said this. Wrong. It's not a matter of right and wrong. You're playing in probabilities here. I could look at any given chart right now, and there's probably 4 or 5 different structures in place that it could go, saying it could go in different directions. We're playing probabilities here, not certainties.
Right, and you got to remember too that you also have that influence now of the larger markets. You've got those couple players that can swing everything. You've got the quant firms tied to the exchanges. Anytime you think you know what's going to happen, it's going to do the opposite so that the exchange can juice the lemon. I mean, these things all occur on a daily basis,
Well, that's just it. When you have when you're so oversaturated with manipulation in these markets from exchanges, from whales, and another factor that I try to remind people of is that, they say, well, the 4-year cycle's dead, and the institutions are here and they're going to break the 4-year cycle. And one of my responses to that is, what puts you under the impression that these whales, who are like kids in a candy store when it comes to taking your money by manipulating these markets, want this to end, right? What makes you think that? They want this market to stay in the range that it's in right now as long as possible, because they are siphoning off billions of dollars on a daily basis from emotional retail investors, because it's so easy for them to move these markets with smaller amounts of money because of the volume.
Yeah. Well, and you also have front running, so they're simply faster than you are,
Yeah, they know what's going to happen ahead of time, right? Like, oh, World Liberty Financial. they all got that coin as soon as it got launched everywhere. As soon as it got listed on the same day everywhere. Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, everybody listed it the same day. Saw hundreds of announcements from all these exchanges. All Trump's buddies who had that coin, they were all dumping it all over retail. Who was buying it on these exchanges because they thought it was going to be the best thing since wrestling, right? So,
Yep. Yep. I can remember going back in time with like SHIB, right? All the different exchanges that came along, and everybody was quick to list SHIB. Oh, yeah, we got SHIB, we got SHIB, we got SHIB. And, SHIB has, I don't even remember how many zeros in the supply. And the founders were anonymous. The whole thing was totally bogus to begin with. There's no utility at all. It's just a ripoff of Doge. And all the exchanges were quick to list it. Well, why? Well, all of their users want to, the users are saying, we want to buy and sell it. And they know they can all make money off of it, And so the same thing with the World Coin Financial or whatever. Same deal. Same thing with Trump coin. Same thing with Melania coin. Whatever other, popular meme coin has dropped. They're going to list it right away just so they can make all the fees on it,
Well, excuse me. Still sick. That's one of the things that I've been telling people as well is that a lot of projects, if you're holding projects, like there's a project, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Zbeck that we're very heavily into. Love the project, right? Streaming real-time payroll, announcement coming up about a partnership with Ripple. They've got a product coming out with Ripple. They're partnered with MasterCard. They have their own MasterCard out, all that stuff. It's a great project, right? That being said, it's not listed on Binance yet. It's not listed on a lot of major exchanges, right? I said, a lot of these coins, if you can get in on these kinds of projects, great utility plays, right, with long-term viability, before they get listed on these exchanges, well, then you could be those people front running and getting out when you get the listing and stuff like that, because these exchanges will list these projects if there's demand. Like these exchanges go on a listing spree when it's like altcoin season starts to kick in, because that's there, just like for us, that's our window of time over these 4 years to make our money and get out. It's the exchange's window of time as well, right? To list everything that they can, get all the trading fees that they can get, and then delist everything as we go into a bear market, right?
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, the house is going to win, right? In some form or fashion. Or let's say the house should win, put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what I was talking about it last night on the Patreon live. I was just saying, like, the best way to succeed in this space, in my opinion, maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, is to dollar cost average into projects that you believe in and just wait. All these other tricks and little workarounds and scams and schemes to try to get there faster is only going to get you wrecked over the years. That's all I've witnessed. Everyone's got some magic pill that's going to, fast forward you getting rich in this space and not having to, basically pay your dues and put the time in. It never works.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's also very challenging, I think, just to keep it up day in, day out endlessly. It's tiring. which is probably why, it's like some people they're there for a while, they step away for a while, right? I mean, I'm guilty of that. Like you said, Max, kind of a little bit, same deal. It's hard to be fully in all the time in these particular spaces,
For sure. Some days I wake up and I look at the bubbles and they're all red, and I'm just like, you just want to bang your forehead on the table and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go now, right? Like, it's enough. But we persevere, right? Because we know that those days are the days that make the millionaires, not the green ones.
Yeah, that's very true. And if you can get in early, I remember back when Jasmy was floating around, 0.003, 0.002, I can remember looking back at some of the other ones thinking like, God, if I had only gotten in way back then. And then when you're actually in a project way back then, it's challenging. The day in, day out, you're just like, oh God, can we just move on? Can we get some good news? Come on, give me something to hold on to here, you know?
I mean, speaking of emotional, I'm going to take this as an emotional kind of attack on me here. Look at this comment by overwhelming anxiety. The only thing going up is your subscriber count and Patreon count, subscriber count. So I don't know if that is some sort of implication that I have control over the markets and it's not going up because I don't want it to, or something like that. But that is a perfect representation, in my opinion, of exactly what we're kind of referring to, is somebody with a lack of experience and time in the market is lashing out in an emotional fashion at somebody because they don't understand, they don't have the patience to wait for this market to go up. So then they're going to say, well, everything's not going up. Crypto's not going up. Just your subscriber count's like, okay, I'll be the big bad wolf in your crypto journey for you, I suppose, right? But I guess the point of it is those are the emotional people that end up getting wrecked in the end, because that is an emotional response if I've ever seen one before.
Yeah. And I would say too, you know, early on, like when I started in this space, it takes a big leap of faith to put yourself out there, first of all. You know, like one of the things that I said at one point in the past was that if you can't share your face, then I'm not going to take you seriously, whoever you are, right? So, you know, you're not only putting yourself out there, you're investing a ton of time into doing this day in, day out, following it religiously, etc. Right? There's a significant amount of commitment that goes into that. And, you know, one of the things I found early on was I ran into that tribalism, you know, of certain projects embrace you, other projects tell you you're full of shit and we hate your guts. And it really didn't matter, you know, which was which. Some of them were just more embracing, and others weren't, and just tell you you don't know anything and you're wrong about absolutely everything. And then lo and behold, later down the road, you see things and you're like, I was kind of right about that one. You know, you just didn't want to hear it. Like, okay, great. So, you know, it's a challenge, I think, in the crypto space, conveying honesty that it is what it is, especially when there are a lot of bad actors, you know.
Well, everyone's a conspiracy theorist when it comes to crypto, right? Like when I told everybody with World Liberty Financial, I told them don't touch it with a 10-foot pole. People got pissed off at me for it, right? I got attacked for it. You don't know what you're talking about. You didn't do your research. It's not going to dump. Here we are, right? Fast forward. Same thing with one of our favorite projects, ZBEC, right? I love ZBEC. Most of my community loves ZBEC, but it went on like I don't even know, like a 300% run in like, I don't know, it couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 days or something like that, right?
Okay.
And I told everybody, it's time to sell. It's time to take profits. Oh, did I get attacked? Holy smokes. No. It's another project, Gari, same thing. It ran up 500% in 24 hours. No bullshit. Last month, right? And I told everybody, get out. Like, people were talking to me like they were going to sell their Jasmy and they were going to sell all of their long-term bags after Gari had pumped 500% to buy more Gari, right? And I'm the only guy standing there going, guys, you got to sell, right? Like, people were telling me that Gari, like I was reading the comments, they were like, Gari's the best project in the world now. It's the number one blockchain out there now. It's going to be the best project in crypto. They didn't even know who the team was, what the project did, or anything, right? It was just because it ran up 500% in 24 hours. It was the best project that had ever existed in crypto, right? And when I said at the top, get the hell out, nothing pumps 500% in 24 hours and doesn't come back down to reality, I got attacked. People basically told me to go screw myself, didn't know what I was talking about. It's going to go up forever. Stop fighting the project. I'm just, like you just said, I'm just representing honesty here, right?
Yeah.
Even just basic technical analysis will tell you if something runs up 500%, in 24 hours with no support levels whatsoever, it's coming back. Gravity is a funny thing.
Well, and that's something that's kind of unique to crypto as well, that you do get these straight up spikes, right? It's very rarely a gradual build in the crypto space. It's more of a straight up spike and a straight down that's coming shortly thereafter, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, something else to think about as well, kind of tacking on to your thought there, is think about it like this: if Bitcoin is a derivative of fiat, right? Whether it's the US dollar, Canadian dollars, whatever your dollar is, but it's a derivative of fiat, right? You could argue that Ethereum's a derivative of Bitcoin. And, if Bitcoin's 40% of the market and Ethereum's 20%, that's already 60. You start going down from there, and then you look at the thing that you're investing into. So my point in saying that is, how many rungs down the ladder of a derivative are you sinking all of your money into? That's the level of risk you're taking on.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And the problem here's the problem with a lot of new people in crypto though that came in the last, I don't know, year and a half, right? They have to be a little bit riskier if they want to make, a better return, because I mean, people like you and me, we were buying your dots and your chain links and your bitcoins and ethereums. We were buying them in 2022 when Bitcoin was $15,000. They weren't here for that, right? Unfortunately, the deeper we get into the cycle, the higher your risk curve has to kind of be, right? But you can mitigate that. You can, if you do research and you find good projects that are small cap, right? Like ZBEC, for example. We got into ZBEC. I think it was like a $20 million market cap or something.
Wow.
Now it is $326 million market cap, but it was up like closer to $1 billion at one point when it ran up. So, but again, if you do the research and you know the projects, I mean, I tell you, buying ZBEC right now felt like buying XRP back in 2017.
Yeah, I could see that. And likewise, if you said anything that was against XRP at this point, you're going to get skewered for that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and I've said it. I've said, guys, people ask me, should I buy XRP right now? I said, no, you shouldn't. Honestly, unless you plan on holding it until 2029, probably not, because I mean, XRP has hit what, $3.30 now, something like that. It's set new all-time highs already. It's one of a handful of projects that have hit new all-time highs so far before altcoin season hits. I see maybe a 2 to 2.5x left out of XRP in this cycle. Maybe 5, 6, maybe $7, something along those lines. I think is safe, right?
Yeah.
So, should you buy it? If you're okay with a 2x, then yes, probably, right? But
Yeah.
if you're looking for, if you're looking to turn your, I don't know, 10 grand into 300,000, probably not going to happen with XRP this cycle, right?
No, probably not.
And it kind of leads me towards like Bitcoin maxis as well. Like the reason Bitcoin maxis drive me crazy is because I think that most Bitcoin maxis are intellectually dishonest, right? And that's always been my stance. But because, and I can say that because I'm kind of in the middle. I hold a lot of Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. I buy Bitcoin every day. I buy some Bitcoin, right? But I'm also not stupid. I know I'm not getting the same kind of return on Bitcoin that people who bought it in like 2011, 2012, 2013 are getting, right?
Right.
So what I mean when I say that Bitcoin maxis are intellectually dishonest, it's like they're telling people it's the best thing you should buy. You should buy it. In terms of safety, for lack of a better term in crypto, then yeah, obviously Bitcoin would be, the direction you want to go. But if you're talking about potential ROI and making the same kind of money that Bitcoin maxis made, right? Essentially, what they're telling you, what Bitcoin maxis did in the early days of Bitcoin was they saw a zero adoption, zero utility altcoin, right? Meme coin essentially didn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
A low cap altcoin. And they decided to take a chance on that altcoin, and it paid off for them over the years, right? That's awesome. However, their argument now is that you should not do the same thing that they did and take a risk on a smaller cap altcoin that you believe in, right? You should just buy what they hold and pump their bags more. And I think that that argument is intellectually dishonest. They're telling you not to do what they did, right? And I don't see how that's a good argument.
Yeah, in a
Maybe
way. I mean, I don't know if they're 100% it's not like apples to apples. It's more of an apples to oranges, you know, because again, I mean, Bitcoin was launched anonymously to change really, you know, in the face of 2008 to sort of change the monetary system as a way of transacting peer to peer, right? That's what it was intended for. It was not intended to be this thing dominated by Michael Saylor and ETFs that it's turned into, you know? Likewise, I mean, you know,
it's the opposite of what it was supposed to be.
It kind of is. Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, I guess, you know, if you think about the, you know, breaking it down by Satoshis, maybe not, but it kind of is. But likewise, you know, if you're looking at like other things, I mean, they're usually like more of a specific project, right? It's rare that you have something kind of at Bitcoin's level that comes about, but you know, Bitcoin is also it's the first mover. I mean, it's got a significant advantage on that alone, and the fact that it's everywhere, you know. And you know, I mean, it doesn't hurt the more investment that happens with it. And I think the thing with Bitcoin is, you know, it's kind of like the horse got out of the barn, and everybody who's against it can only be against it so long. You know, kind of reminds me of when I was growing up, the particular town I grew up in, there was a lot of like retirees, right? And they kind of squashed growth, right? They didn't want anything new to come. They didn't want anything being built. They didn't want anything, right? And it was always about them. And eventually they all died off. And now the place is like exploded with growth. And so I think Bitcoin in a way is kind of like the same thing, that you can fight it, but eventually it's coming regardless.
Can you even fight it though? I don't even know if you can fight it. You can have the will to fight it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like an Elizabeth Warren, you know, who's like hell bent against crypto. Good luck with that position. That's a loser, you know.
Well, yeah, her Bitcoin anti-crypto army didn't last too long. Eh?
No, it didn't. Yeah, and you know, there's a big irony there as well. I mean, I don't want to talk politics at all, but the fact that, you know, the Democratic Party has always been known as kind of like the working man's party, but then they're against something like crypto that is like the working man's stock market. Like it's kind of an oxymoron. Like it's just doesn't make any sense, you know, to take that position. Really, you should be trying to embrace it and put some actual structure and rules around it. That would be more helpful, you know.
Well, what are your thoughts on the banks? I don't know how much you've read about it, but about the banks fighting this Genius Act, where they're calling it a loophole for exchanges to be able to offer higher yield on stablecoins and stuff like that. For me, for the banks to argue for the Genius Act to be amended, that exchanges can't offer high yield, they have to offer the same yield that banks offer, right, to make it competitive, is that represents to me all you need to see in terms of who the bank has, like the bank's best interests at heart, not their customers. Because if they were truly gave a crap about their customers, they would be arguing the opposite. They would be arguing, allow us to offer the same yield as the exchanges, not make the exchanges lower the yield that they're offering to match us, right? That says to me, you don't want to be competitive. You just want to save all the money. You don't want to offer yield, but you don't want someone else to either, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of the idea too of like, show me a banker that's comfortable losing money. That's not how it works, you know. So they are going to fight that. And they have a massive lobby and they have a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, like what we've always said in terms of why banks don't like crypto. People took it as a conspiracy theory and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, if you combine a couple of things, for example, your self custody wallet, whether it's Decent, Tangem, Ledger, whatever it is, right? So if you're custodying your own stablecoin, for example, Circle stablecoin, um, and you get yourself a Zbeck carbon card, so they have a Mastercard, a carbon card, and you can spend your stable coin, your USDC Circle, anywhere that debit, Visa, and MasterCard is accepted globally, right? With this Zbeck carbon card. You can transfer your Circle stablecoin because it's a prepaid, right? So you can transfer your Circle stablecoin USDC over to your Zbeck carbon card. It's a zero fee card, and you can spend your stablecoin like cash anywhere. Again, debit, Visa, and Mastercard is accepted. That completely and utterly, just that process completely eliminates banks. Completely. You are custodying your own crypto, your own stablecoin in a self custody wallet, and you are transferring it over to your MasterCard as you want to spend it, and you're able to use it anywhere that your bank card is accepted.
Well, you
Banks are
still
complete.
have MasterCard.
What's that?
You still have MasterCard.
Well, what do you mean?
You're saying you have a MasterCard, right?
Well, yeah, it's the Zbeck carbon card is a MasterCard.
Right. So you still have basically a traditional financial partner that's sort of in the loop.
Yeah, but banks are not.
Right.
And
right.
that's why that's been the the kind of thesis behind this all these years, is that banks saw this kind of possibility coming a long time ago, which is why they've been lobbying against crypto for so long, is because they know that this is a process that will eventually send them the way of the dodo bird.
Yeah, potentially. You know, you've also had though, you know, I can't remember if it was 2-3 years ago when they had the bank run on the various banks that lent to crypto institutions, right? That did happen. So again, I agree with you long term. However, short term, it's never that easy. It's more complicated, you know?
Well, banks are going to have to evolve. I really, when I say that, I don't think that banks are going to actually, be gone, but they're going to have to change. And change doesn't come easy, especially to institutions, right? They're going to have to compete with exchanges. They're going to have to start to custody crypto. I mean, for crying out loud, my dad got into crypto finally, like maybe under a year ago, and he's just buying spot ETFs through his bank right now for Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he wanted to start buying into some of our altcoins and stuff like that, your Ondos and Piths and stuff like that. And the first thing that happened, he created an account on an exchange and he tried to transfer money. Bank calls, blocks his transfer, calls him on the phone and says, "Hey, man, you know crypto's a scam, right?" We're still in that phase, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's very frustrating. I ran into a similar scenario like that with my bank way back when, that, you know, wherever I was trying to transfer it to was based out of Gibraltar. And they were just like, they're like, "Yeah, we're not doing this. This is a scam," you know? And I'm like, okay, time out. Like, it's my money. And if I want to send it to anybody I want, I should be able to do that. But then they block it. And then you have to physically call them and talk to somebody to try to get around it. So yeah, that's very challenging. So again, it's the idea of that peer-to-peer transfer, that I should be able to do whatever I want without your oversight, and then them saying, "Well, no, I'm not on board with this because, you know, I need to be able to oversight the process," right?
Well, I have a funny story for you. About a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I went to a bank, and for two purposes. One, I wanted to open a safety deposit box. I wanted information on opening a safety deposit box, anyways, right? And two was I wanted to sit down with one of the managers and get their position on crypto, right? Whether they're crypto friendly, if I was to transfer money hypothetically from a crypto exchange to that account, were they going to freeze it? Were they going to give me a hard time? So basically, what's your stance? So I go in and I sit down in the manager's office, one of the bank manager's office, and I ask her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we don't like crypto, right? We don't support it." I'm like, "Okay," and that's fair. And then she picks up the phone and she calls this dude. This guy comes in. A financial advisor walks in the office, right? And he sits down. And so she makes me give him my spiel. I'm like, "I'm just wondering your stance on crypto. If I transfer money, blah blah blah, right? Are we going to have a problem here, right?" And he goes, looks at me and goes, "Yeah." He's like, we don't recommend our customers deal with crypto. It's a scam." I looked at him and said, "Okay, I make more money than you, right? I don't I don't need your financial advice on my investments, right?" And the point is that the patronizing attitude that was given to me uh, was completely unacceptable. And then once they saw my portfolio, right, all of a sudden I was their number one customer, right? You want a bottle of water? We were joking about, you want a foot rub? Like what's going on, kind of thing, right? But the damage had already been done, right? You've
Yeah.
already revealed who you are, even just as people, right? How dare you look down on anybody, right? And then as soon as you found out that what I'm worth, and that I make far more than you do, all of a sudden I'm your best friend and I'm your number one customer. And then to top it off, I started inquiring about the safety deposit box. And I said, he's like, "Well, what do you plan on keeping in your deposit box?" I said, "Well, none of your business,"
Right.
right? Because that's the point. It's none of your business. He was okay. He's like, "But just so you understand, you know, if there's a fire and we don't insure our safety deposit boxes, so if there's a fire, um, and your stuff gets destroyed, it's just gone." I'm like, "Do you have many fires at the bank that destroy safety deposit?" He's like, "Well, no." It's okay. And he said, "Also, if it gets broken into and your stuff gets stolen, it's not insured and it's gone." And I said, "Do you have many thefts from safety deposit boxes in your bank?" He's like, "Well, no." I said, "You must be the worst salesman I've ever seen in my life, right? So you're trying to convince me not to conduct business at your bank, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what your deal is, but I got out of there, quick as a hiccup." But just the patronizing attitude that they had towards me shows us still where we are when it comes to banks and crypto, right?
Yeah. This reminds me of a personal thing that happened to me recently, not related to finance or banking, but I've got a couple rental properties, right? And one of these properties, I'm in between tenants turning it over, and I've got to trim some trees. So some really tall trees out front. I managed to get to them. The third one I can't get. So I start calling up tree guys, and I'm like, "Hey, I've got this tall tree. Can you help me out?" "Nope, can't do it." "Nope, I've got a crew of, they bragged to me about how big their crew is and all their equipment and all this BS. Don't care." One guy, "I'm busy for the next 4 weeks." "Okay, great. Don't care either." And so I go through like three, four of these, right? So I finally get to a guy that I say, "Yeah, I got this tall tree. I can't get to it, kind of in a bind." He's like, "I'll be there in a couple days." I'm like, "Excellent. Okay, great." And so when he comes out, you know, real nice guy. I'm like, "You're the guy I was destined to meet, takes care of the tree, no problem." And I point blank said to him, I said, "All right." I said, "Now I've actually got multiple properties." So I said, "If I need you for any of these other properties, I need somebody that I can trust." And I said, "Are you that guy?" And he says, "Yes, sir." And it's like, my God, like that's the difference, right? It's right there. It's that all the short-sighted group listened to this request of mine and they just said no. They have no idea how much business that I could possibly be bringing them, right? Kind of like your scenario. It's the exact same deal, right? And
Yeah.
then finally I meet the right guy and he's like, yep, absolutely, I'll take care of it. And then I tell him, I've got these other places too, and I need you to work on those. He's like, all right, I can do that. Like, exactly.
He just made himself a lot of money.
Yeah, he did. He did when the other guys completely lost it,
Let me I gotta jump into the chat here and see if we
Sure.
have any questions. Element Rage says, would love to hear Jesse's thoughts on Jasmy's roadmap progress. Have you read this year's roadmap yet?
I haven't looked at it. No. Hara again, and not because I'm not interested. Previously, when Hara started putting those out, they were very generic and they really weren't specific like you would get with other blockchain projects. So the Jasmy roadmap, I don't necessarily put a lot of stock into. Probably more importantly than their roadmap is the team that he's assembled. Like I think in particular the guy Burnt. I think he's the one that has really kind of turned this thing in a positive direction. And as long as he's a part of that team, I think you'll continue to see it move. So, the biggest nugget of all is the utility that comes with Jasmy Chain. Obviously, rebranding is a big deal. And then moving towards that TVL that we talked about. That's what I would look at for goals for them. And I think I saw one of his headlines the other day about the fan token being rebranded. That's obviously still an experiment. And, if they continue to build it, great. They can prove the use case and use it with more teams.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't heard from him in a while now, right?
No.
Wonder why that is. Max brought up a good point a while ago, and he said usually when things get quiet from the Jasmy team, you start to see, announcement after announcement after announcement. So, I mean, I think Hara actually did say about 2 weeks ago that they were also expecting to release an update on the platform they're building with Panasonic as well soon.
That'd be exciting to learn more of. That'd be very exciting to find out.
Yeah, because like they that was supposed to be launched like I think they said 6 months after they talked about it in like March of 2024, and we've been over a year now.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting with them is that there's sort of like different ways of looking at this thing, right? It's like, do they have the main Jasmy platform and everybody just sort of builds on it, or do they have these individual projects with different groups for different reasons? And it seems like to date they've more so had the latter, the different individual projects with different groups for different reasons. And that's kind of like the Panasonic thing. That's the Carbon Credit Consortium. They're very specific in those arenas, but maybe, with the Jasmy chain and the utility, that starts to change over time.
Yeah, I agree. Big Mike, thanks, brother. Kizza says, when Rob and Jesse podcast. Jesse doesn't have time for me.
I'm sorry.
we were supposed to do a monthly show, weren't we?
Yeah, at one point we were. This is true. I know. Yeah. I've just if anybody followed my old content, at one point in time I was working from home, had a lot of extra spare time, and I was kind of cranking out, trying to do as many videos as I could, and I'd try to do 5 a week at one point. But in the time since then, I'm rarely at home. I'm kind of all over the place on any given day. And then on top of that, I've got a couple of startups that I'm working as co-founder in. So all that's happening at the same time.
He's making excuses, guys. He doesn't have time for me.
That's true.
Boo this man.
Thanks.
I love you, buddy. Yeah, that would be. I have honestly thought about quite a bit lately about starting a podcast. It would be, I
Yeah.
think, it would be a pretty cool thing.
Well, I would say that at least in my near plans, my schedule should open up in the new year. So if you want to start one up in the new year, give
Let's
me a
do it.
shout.
You know, you know what we should do in the meantime? We should maybe put together uh, a concept for it in the meantime.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
cool,
we can
man.
definitely do that.
There you go, guys. We'll work on it. Yeah, that would be great for the new year. So absolutely, brother. That would be. You got to have somebody that you can have an intellectual conversation with. That's why I think that I like having these conversations with you and stuff like that. And I think that people like listening to it is because a lot of other places you just get moon boy fluff, right? You don't get real intellectual honesty and conversation about pretty much everything that's going on around the market, right?
Yeah, yeah, very
It's hard
true.
to find. So, but yeah, all right, brother. I'm losing my voice. I've been really sick. My father-in-law got. We're both of the same thing. His evolved into a combination of pneumonia and bronchitis, and I'm kind of spiraling into the same direction here. So I've been kind of spotty, but I don't know if you could tell, but my voice is going on me now.
Yeah, yeah, I'm starting to hear it. So yeah, hey, by all means, you gotta sign off. It's been great catching up. As always, thanks for having me on your channel. Hopefully, we delivered some worthwhile content here.
Absolutely, brother. Hey, and anytime you can squeeze me in, man, for an hour or so, whatever, just fire
Yep.
me a message, man. I'll drop everything and hop on, and we'll have a chat.
Sounds good. Yeah, I was going to say, one of my projects both of my projects, my startup things are in the blockchain space, and so
Oh,
there may be more to come on that, but I can't really go into detail on it. Not yet.
well, when the time comes, we need to
Yeah,
break it down on the channel, brother.
yeah, absolutely. They're very interesting though. Both of them are very interesting. So
I
could
would
be some opportunities there. You never know.
I
Yeah.
would expect nothing less from you, my friend.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later, brother. Thanks again for popping in, man. I appreciate your time.
All right, thanks, and see y'all back out there. I'll try to be active. Try to I'm usually kind of lurking in the background, but I do post occasionally here and there. And like I said, hopefully in the new year my schedule frees up and maybe I'll get some more content going. But in the meantime, just a little tied up. So thanks for everybody being here. Appreciate it. Thanks to you, Rob, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Actually, real quick, this is his channel, guys. Go shoot him a sub. He's been very negligent on his channel. Shoot him a sub. He will be back eventually. But Jesse drops some absolutely amazing content, guys. Very informative, very thought through, and he does his research when he makes content, guys. So definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, it's been a while. I just got to get back to it. Like I said, schedule frees up. Hey, you never know.
Yeah,
I always leave it all on the table.
I'm really excited about further discussions about a podcast. That'd be fun, man. So, all right, brother. I'll talk to you later.
All right. See y'all later. Thanks again, man.
Take care, guys.